Money was slipping through my fingers like water. Each day brought more anxiety, more impulsive purchases, more enslavement to the promise that the next shopping trip would bring me peace. Then, I discovered 3 teachings from philosophers who died 2,000 years ago, and they completely transformed how I view every dollar that passes through my hands. If you feel like money controls you instead of the other way around, this video might be the relief you have been searching for so long. Before we begin this transformation together, please subscribe to Stoic Minimalism and hit the notification bell, because every week you will receive reflections like this one that can revolutionize your relationship with what is essential in life. Also, leave your like if you are part of the group that believes less can be infinitely more. Have you ever stopped to notice how our relationship with money feels like an endless, vicious cycle? We earn to spend to feel good, feel bad about spending too much, and then need to earn more to repeat everything again. It is like those television programs from the 90s that played on Sunday afternoons. Always the same story, always the same predictable ending. The difference is that with the TV program, you could change the channel. In real life, it seems like someone hid the remote control. But 2,000 years ago, 3 men experienced this same feeling of being trapped in a cycle they could not control. One was the most powerful man in the world, owner of unimaginable riches. Another was advisor to emperors, surrounded by luxury and influence. The third was a slave who did not even possess his own freedom. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus. 3 completely different lives, but they reached the same conclusions about how to deal with money and material possessions. And these conclusions saved not only their fortunes, but their souls. 1. Redefinition of wealth. Seneca and sufficiency. The first habit that transformed my financial life came from Seneca. And this is ironic, because Seneca was ridiculously wealthy by the standards of any era. Lucius Annaeus Seneca accumulated considerable fortune as advisor to emperors, but did something that seemed like madness to his wealthy contemporaries. He constantly questioned his own wealth. In his letters to Lucilius, Seneca writes that true wealth lies in knowing how to be content with little. He himself was extremely rich, but defended the ethical use of resources and periodic training in scarcity. Desired poverty is sufficient wealth, he affirmed, suggesting something radical, voluntarily choosing to live with less to discover how much you really need. Seneca practiced what he preached. Regularly, he spent days living with the absolute minimum. He ate like a poor person, dressed in simple clothes, slept on the floor, not out of masochism, but out of wisdom. Place yourself in poverty when you are in wealth. Thus, when poverty comes, it will not be a stranger. I adapted this practice to my reality. Once a month, I live as if I had lost everything. Only the essential. No food delivery, no impulse purchases, no small luxuries that I do not even notice anymore. I eat only what I already have at home, use only basic clothes, avoid any expense that is not absolutely necessary. On the first day of voluntary poverty, I felt a strange discomfort. Not from the lack of things, but from the perception of how many small purchases I made automatically. The coffee from the bakery, the chocolate at the supermarket, the rideshare app when I could walk. Small expenses that, added together, represented a fortune throughout the month. But on the second day, something changed. I began to notice things I had ignored for years, the real taste of food I prepared myself. The satisfaction of walking through the city instead of rushing from car to car, the quality of silence at home, without the constant agitation of receiving deliveries. On the third day, a revelation. I was not suffering. I was actually more present, calmer, more connected with myself. And when I returned to my normal standard of living, I brought a deep gratitude for what I have and crystal clarity about what I really need versus what I just desire. This practice taught me that the fear of scarcity is what feeds our compulsion to accumulate. When you experience scarcity voluntarily, you realize that you can live with much less than you imagine. And this realization is liberating, because when you know you can live with little, you stop being hostage to much. 2. Detachment and clarity of purpose. Marcus Aurelius and inner freedom. The second habit is the deepest of all, and came from Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor who controlled the riches of the greatest empire in history, but wrote to himself about the irrelevance of material possessions. Marcus Aurelius had access to literally anything he wanted: palaces, works of art, exotic food, clothes made by the best artisans of the known world. But in his Meditations, written in moments of solitude during military campaigns, he reflected, "Few things are necessary for a happy life. Everything is within you, in your way of thinking." Imagine the most powerful man in Rome, surrounded by gold and marble, teaching us that wealth is in the mind. Marcus Aurelius discovered that freedom comes when you no longer need the approval of others, nor luxury as a symbol of personal value. He recommended frugality not as punishment, but as spiritual practice. "Very little is necessary to have a happy life," he wrote alone in his military tent, far from all imperial splendor. And then he added something that forever changed my perspective. "Happiness is all within you, in your way of thinking." I began to apply this vision through a simple question before any purchase. Will this make me a better person, or just a person who owns more things? The difference is subtle but revolutionary. A better person is more generous, more present, wiser, more useful to the world. A person who owns more things is just someone with more things. Last week I was in a store looking at a jacket I definitely did not need. It was beautiful, it was on sale, and my mind was already elaborating justifications. "You deserve it. It is cheap. It will be useful in winter." But then I remembered Marcus Aurelius and asked the question, "Will this make me a better person?" The honest answer was no. The jacket was not going to teach me anything. It was not going to connect me with other people. It was not going to contribute to my life goals. It was just another thing to store in the closet, another consumption decision based on impulse, not on purpose. I left the store without buying anything, and walking down the street felt a strange sensation of victory. I had not resisted a temptation. I had simply chosen with clarity. And this clarity came from a profound redefinition of what it means to be rich. Marcus Aurelius understood something that our consumer culture strives to hide. True wealth is inner self-sufficiency. It is knowing that you will be fine regardless of what happens outside. It is having the serene confidence of someone who built an inner fortress that no economic crisis can tear down. 3. Mastery over desires. Epictetus and what is under our control. The third habit came directly from Epictetus, the philosopher who knew poverty like few had known. Born a slave in Phrygia, he spent most of his life without even possessing his own freedom, but developed a wisdom about wealth that would shame any modern financial guru. Epictetus divided everything into two simple categories: what depends on me and what does not depend on me. Some things are under our control, others are not. Under our control are our opinion, our impulse, our desire, our aversion. Not under our control are our body, our property, our reputation, our position. But here is the revolutionary insight. Epictetus realized that we should not become attached to what we do not control, and this includes the desire to accumulate wealth. The real problem is not the lack of money, but slavery to the desire to have it in excess. "It is not poor who has little, but who desires more," he said, and these words echo like a slap in the face of our consumer society. I applied this practically through an exercise I call weekly inventory of desires. Every Friday I sit in the same wooden chair with a simple notebook in front of me and ask, what did I desire this week and why? It is impressive how most desires do not originate from real needs, but from external triggers. An advertisement I saw, a post on Instagram, a conversation that left me insecure about my social position. Last week I discovered that I had desired a new phone, not because mine was broken, but because a colleague showed up with a newer model and, subconsciously, I interpreted this as evidence that I was falling behind. Epictetus would say, "Can you control this interpretation?" The answer is yes. I can choose to see the colleague's new phone as irrelevant to my life. I can focus on what I really need to improve. I can remember that my value is not in the objects I possess. This habit of questioning my desires before acting on them created a space between impulse and action, a space where I can breathe, reflect, choose consciously. And in this space, I discovered a freedom I never thought was possible. The freedom of not being hostage to one's own desires. The synthesis, money as tool, not as master. These three habits did not just change my relationship with money, they changed my relationship with freedom. Because true freedom is not having enough money to buy anything. True freedom is not needing to buy anything to be happy. The Stoics were not against money. Seneca was rich. Marcus Aurelius controlled the riches of an empire. But they understood that money is a means, never an end. It is a tool for a purposeful life, not the purpose of life. This change in perspective brought surprising practical consequences. First, I started saving more without effort, simply because I needed less. Second, my investments improved because I stopped making decisions based on emotion, the fear of losing or the greed to gain quickly. Third, my relationship with work was transformed. I started choosing projects for value alignment, not just for financial value. But most importantly, I found a serenity I did not know existed, a peace that does not depend on the bank balance, a confidence that does not fluctuate with the financial market, a satisfaction that does not need to be bought. Last Sunday, I was organizing the few books I keep on the shelf, a small curation of texts that really transformed me. Among them, the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, the Letters of Seneca, and the Manual of Epictetus. Three men who lived 2,000 years ago, but who knew exactly the same dilemmas we face today. They lived in an era without credit cards, without digital advertising, without social pressure from social networks. But they dealt with the same fundamental question: how to use material resources to our advantage without becoming enslaved to them. And they found answers that remain valid because they touch something deeper than economic trends. They touch human nature. Stoicism taught me that true wealth is not in having much, but in needing little. It is not in being able to buy anything, but in consciously choosing what is worth having. It's not in impressing others with possessions, but in living aligned with one's own values. When I see an irresistible promotion today, I remember Marcus Aurelius writing alone. You can hardly be unhappy if you do not depend on the happiness of things external to you. When I feel tempted to spend impulsively, I hear Seneca's voice. Was what you want to buy not already in your plan? Then why buy it? And when I worry too much about investments, Epictetus whispers, can you control this worry? One morning, drinking coffee at the light wooden kitchen table, with the soft morning light entering through the white curtain, I realized something that moved me. Happiness was not in the things I had bought. It was in the ability to be present in that simple moment, without the constant anxiety about money that had accompanied me for so many years. It was in the freedom of not being enslaved by either abundance or scarcity. If you made it this far, you probably feel something similar to what I felt a few years ago, that feeling that money is simultaneously too necessary and not enough. That complicated relationship between having and being, between deserving and achieving. The Stoics lived 2,000 years ago, but they knew exactly these feelings. And more importantly, they found a way out. The way out is not in earning more or spending less. The way out is in changing the question. Instead of, how can I have more? Ask, what do I really need? Instead of, why cannot I buy this? Ask, why do I want to buy this? Instead of, when will I have enough money? Ask, what is enough for me? These questions do not have easy answers, but they have honest answers. And when you find your honest answers, you discover that you already have much of what you were looking for. You discover that the inner peace you were trying to buy was always available for free. You discover that the freedom you were seeking outside is a construction from inside out. Today, when I wake up, I do not think first about what I am going to buy or how much money I have in the account. I think about how I can live this day aligned with my values. I think about how I can be useful, present, grateful. Money is still important, but it stopped being urgent. And this change from urgency to importance made all the difference. If this video resonated with you, please subscribe to Stoic Minimalism to receive weekly reflections that can transform your relationship with the essential. Leave your like to show me that this content makes sense to you and helps me continue bringing these ancient teachings to our modern life. And tell me in the comments, which of these 3 habits made the most sense for your current situation? I'm eager to read your reflections. Before we say goodbye, I want to leave a summary of what we learned today. First, practice mastery over desires by questioning weekly what you really want versus what you think you need. Second, redefine your idea of wealth by voluntarily experimenting with living with less to discover how much you really need. Third, cultivate detachment by asking if each purchase will make you a better person or just someone who owns more things. Money with wisdom, life with lightness. Comment if you liked the video and do not forget, less is more when you know what is essential. Until the next reflection.